All righty. I think. So we are working with elder today.
Okay.
But we're not going to be working with the berry because everyone works with the berry and the berry is really well known. So I want to focus really on use of the flower, and then our upcoming classes will be on formulation with the flower and looking at the virtues specifically of elderflower and how to work with it. Because it really is, it's a really beneficial and powerful plant, but a part of the plant, but it's one that everyone kind of goes over because of its, sexy older sister, the berry. So we want to give some love there. So elder was in older literature. It is in the Caprifoliaceae. Good morning.
Morning.
It was earlier put into the Caprifoliaceae family. This is elder. I'll pour some for y'all so you can start. And I thought that this was really, really cool because this is the honeysuckle family. And in Chinese herbalism, honeysuckle is one of the plants that's really valued for immune support. And so I was thinking that, ooh, look at this familial tendency of the plants. And then with the new, genetic testing and changing of plant families and all of that, it was moved. So it is no longer in the Caprifoliaceae family. It is now in the Adoxaceae family. And I don't have any clever associations to make with that family because this is the only member of the family that I'm familiar with, is elder. So it was really handy when it fit into my narrative really nicely. But
so the family changed?
Yeah.
Changed
So
classification?
yeah, this has been happening a lot because in the last couple of decades, we've switched from identification of plants from their botanical structures. That has long been the way that we identify things, particularly by their flowers. The floral structure is one of the main identifiers of plants. And so lots of plants were put into specific categories, and this is a perfect example. Elder, because of the way that it grew and the way the flower looked, it's like, nope, that is a honeysuckle, we're going to put it into honeysuckle. But they started to do genetic testing, looking at the DNA of plants, because now we have this ability to isolate DNA and look at this. And with genetic testing, so much of the information that we thought we had has been changed. And this is why in the last 10 years in particular, we've seen a lot of changes in the families, and in the and sometimes even in the genus and the species of plants. You can grab another chair over there and set it up, or there's a big one up there. And a great example of that that we also talk about is the change in rosemary. So rosemary was recently changed from, it was its own genus, Rosmarinus officinalis. And just a couple of years ago, they changed it to a sage. It's now considered in the Salvia genus. So it's Salvia rosmarinus and not Rosmarinus officinalis, because genetic testing said, well, it's closer to this. Though herbally, medicinally, energetically, they're very, very different. And I would never, that's why herbalists complain about that. Anyway.
So,
taxonomic.
Is honeysuckle family?
It is not in the honeysuckle family. It was considered to be in the honeysuckle family.
Okay.
It is no longer considered to be in the honeysuckle family, but you will quite often see that in older literature, depending on the age of your literature, you'll see that. So we are talking about elder today, but we're working with elderflower and not the berry, because everyone knows who talks about the berry. So let me pour y'all some tea. And I want you to look at your tea. Well, I have darker cups for you, so it's harder to look at the tea in here, but I'll show you in our infusion. So when we're doing our organoleptic testing, really for looking for, did we make our medicine in a proper way? One of the things that we're going to want to look at is the color. Is the color of the infusion a deep gold color? If it's a very light pale color, if it's green, if it's any color really other than that beautiful deep golden color, you want to question the efficacy of your medicine making. So with this plant, what does it smell like to you? Teresa, good morning, Teresa. Oh, you're exactly. Trinity says, I'm so excited about elderflower. I feel like it's often overlooked. That's exactly my point. That is precisely why I wanted to do it. You are, 100%. So yeah, we are given elderflower love today, and then the next couple of weeks, we'll be doing formulation on elderflower. So we are totally giving elderflower the love that it has long been denied. Good morning, Yolette. So we are smelling our elderflower tea. You have time if you want to go make some elderflower tea and drink it with us. What do you think about the smell?
Definitely got like a floral, sweet, like a sweet floral.
Sweet floral.
That's what I think too.
It's really light though. It's like
Very light. Yeah. Yeah. There are some volatile oils in it. And so especially in the fresh flower, there's a very distinct smell. You know what it makes me, what it reminds me of, and this is one of those scent memories. Scent memories just are these like way back in your just most ancient parts of your brain. So they just go and they stay for so long. The smell of elderflower tea reminds me of Rye crackers, those German, I think, rye crackers that come in wrapped in the paper. That's what it smells like to me. It's very distinctly that.
A little wheat. Oh yeah, I get wheat, but I get the wheaty.
Yeah, starchy. Yeah. Yeah. And so does the taste of it agree with the smell? So sometimes when we smell something, we anticipate that it's going to taste a certain way. And then when we get the taste, because there's a lot of things that aren't present, that aren't available in scent, that are kind of a surprise when we taste them. Is this a surprise, or is it pretty much what you expected from this scent?
I would expect it to taste sweeter than it does for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
it does have a little sweetness, but it's not as sweet as it smells.
Right. So that's likely part of those volatile oils. But there is some sweetness, and we can also kind of feel some kind of thickness in it, right? Some starchiness there. So there are some polysaccharides that are held in the flowers, right? They're the starches that have not been converted yet into the sugars that we'll see, and the sugars and the acids that we'll see in the fruits. But they're part of the therapeutic qualities of the elderflower. So we have some polysaccharides. It's not really a slimy plant, but it is a nicely starchy plant. It's part of that sweetness. What I also want to show you, what do you think?
Is that a vinegar?
Huh?
Is that a vinegar extract?
Nope, this is water. This is the tea that you're drinking.
Oh, it is.
But you can see that some foam comes up. There's a small amount of triterpene saponins in it. It's not a huge amount. And I didn't extract it for very long. This was a pretty short extraction. But there are some triterpene saponins. These are compounds that are partially responsible for some of elders' ability to move fluids and energy through the body. We'll come back to that there. And it gives a little bit of, so there's a unusual combination of feelings that you can feel in your mouth when you're sipping on the tea. You get both a kind of starchy quality. a starchy quality, and there's also a little bit of a tannic, astringing, and sort of a clearing roughness. So that roughness is due partially to tannins, right? To largely flavonoids, because there's a lot of flavonoid chemistry in this plant. It's a really important part of the chemistry is the very rich, abundant flavonoids, which we would expect because it's a flower, and flowers really love to make flavonoids. We are quite often going to see flavonoid chemistry in a flower, and it's going to change when it goes into fruit. But right now we have abundant specific types of flavonoids that are in there. So that's part of that astringent quality, and the saponins give a little bit of that kind of clearing quality. And the polysaccharides are giving some starchiness. So there's a little bit of confusion that can happen when you're trying to do this organoleptic assessment and kind of think and go, how am I feeling? What is this doing to my mouth? It's doing all sorts of different chemistry to your mouth there.
Triterpene saponins, do they have that soapy taste?
Exactly. Yes, and they have a little bit of a soapy taste. Sort of a bitter.
Saw palmetto, is that?
Saw palmetto has a huge amount of it, and so yeah, you really get, yes, that really horrible. Plus, it has like bile in it. Saw palmetto is just one of the worst tasting plants. I always argue with people who want to come and buy it. I am always arguing with people that they want
but
to.
Does that have an effect on the endocrine system or the hormones?
It can, yes. Saponins, the saponins have an affinity for the steroidal hormones. The amounts in here are pretty small, so they're not huge, and primarily they have more of an effect on kind of the fluid, the movement of fluids in the body. So there are some here, but it's not in abundance.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah. Saw palmetto has a much higher amount of them. And yes, most of the endocrine tonics are going to be really, really high in the triterpene saponins. Let's see. So one of the primary actions we use elderflower for is for its alterative effects. Elderflower is one of the primary plants that's used often in areas where there's been a heavy winter, right? And with winter comes a lack of fresh plants, a reliance on preserved foods, a reliance on food that doesn't have a lot of vitality. I'm saying this as though this is something that I hear about from far away because I live in Southern California and we don't have this. And I live in Southern California in 2025. And so this is something I hear about in other areas. But traditionally, elderflower was one of the plants that people would take it when spring came along. And you're like, yes, now we have all these fresh plants. We have these greens and everything. Now we can kind of do a spring cleaning. We can kind of get rid of a lot of the heaviness and the sludginess, the kind of stagnation that a body can feel when we've been primarily eating a lot of preserved or cooked foods for a while, and we're moving into this fresh, bright energy. So elderflower has this long association with that. It was one of the plants that was blooming there. Drinking the tea is one of the primary alteratives that we use. So here we're going into actions. So alterative is one of those qualities in herbalism that is defined in different ways by different people. It is the newer term for what we used to call blood cleansers, right? Blood purifiers. So there's a lot of different plants like that. What are some blood purifiers that you can think of, plants that are traditionally thought of for that? Echinacea, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Nettle, totally, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, dandelion. Burdock, 100% burdock, yeah. Dandelion and horsetail, and yeah, a lot of them are weeds. Red clover, a lot of them are weeds, a lot of them are nourishing. I think one of the best ways of defining alternatives are plants that improve functioning of those organs of elimination, and they improve functioning of the liver, kidney, lymphatic system, colon. They're not stimulating them. They're not a lot of times stimulating a system or an organ to enhance detoxification is ultimately depleting and can be problematic, because when you're stimulating an organ that is not working optimally, generally we want to say, we want to ask first, why isn't it working optimally? Not just beat it and get it to work, but we want to say, hey, kidneys, you okay? Do you need something? What can I give you to make you work better? And so we use alternative plants generally for improving that functioning before we're going in and taking juniper berries to stimulate kidney function. That would be an example of a kidney stimulant. It would certainly increase excretions from the kidneys, but taken over time, it's going to cause irritation and weakness and reactivity of those kidneys. Whereas if we're using nettle, as Renee suggested, or dandelion, or so many of the other alternatives with an affinity for the kidneys, then over time, those kidneys are going to increase in health and functionality while they're also improving their ability to do their job. I've heard with saw palmetto helps with hair loss in women. Is that true? So yes, it is. And it does it primarily because it is a blocker of an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase. And 5-alpha reductase is an enzyme that converts testosterone into a form called DHT, or dihydrotestosterone. And DHT elevation can be a factor in hair loss, both in male pattern baldness and also in women. So it's if that is a reason for the hair loss, the saw palmetto is very effective for that. However, saw palmetto is an over-harvested plant. It is threatened. It's not at risk. It's not endangered, but it's in danger of being endangered. And so it's nice to take our focus away from saw palmetto, because number one, it tastes horrible, as I think I've gone over. Number two, the fatty acids and sterols that are in it, and we'll get back to elder in just a moment, but this is a really important question you asked. The fatty acids and sterols that are the primary compounds in saw palmetto that cause it to be beneficial are not soluble in water. And so you can't make a tea out of it. You need to make a tincture or capsule or something like that. And it's overpriced and hard to get. So it doesn't make good medicine. Yeah, it's just a bother to work with. You can use nettle root. You can use pumpkin seeds. You can use other things for 5-alpha reductase blocking. And then also remember that it is very specifically for hair loss when it is that specific hormonal pattern. There's many other causes of hair loss which it would not address. So if that is the reason for the hair loss, definitely using 5-alpha reductase blockers. All right, back to, so alternatives. This is elderflower is an alternative for the whole body. It is a plant that is improving primarily movement of what was called blood in the body and still is called blood in some traditions, like in Chinese herbalism. They call all of kind of the fluids that move through the body blood. So when we're talking about blood cleansers, we weren't specifically talking about things that cleanse the blood, because the things that cleanse the blood are the organs, right? We have blood cleansers in the form of kidneys, but we have plants that can improve the movement and flow of these fluids, the lymphatic fluids, the extracellular matrix, the interstitial fluids that move between the cells. And this is where a lot of the metabolic waste goes. This is where a lot of leftover cell-to-cell messenger compounds are kind of left behind. Byproducts of metabolic functioning and byproducts of inflammation, just a lot of stuff gets left behind there. So things that improve the clearance of these fluids in the body are really valuable for conditions of stagnation. And this is the key with elder, is it is a classic alternative for when it looks like there's just a lot of heat, right? There's a lot of redness, swelling, heat, inflammation, and also a lack of flow. That it's like if you could just get the flow to go, the heat would go down, rather than just reducing the heat and that the inflammation goes away, right? We can see that there's a lot of stagnation and a lack of movement of energy, movement of fluids, movement of circulation in the body. And what does that look like? It's going to look like purplish color to the skin, right? Purple shows that there's blood there that has been kind of devoid of oxygen. It's not been moving. It's not active. It's not carrying anything. It's sitting there, and it's just like that we've talked about before, of having like a free flowing stream in in a waterway, and if you divert some of the water over into this area and then block it off, you can have all of that, what was vital and active and flowing water becomes stagnant and lifeless and growing funky stuff, and all of a sudden smelling really nasty. And what you need to do is open up that barrier that stop that fluid from moving and bring it into the flow. And that very much happens in our body, and we can see that happening, we can feel that happening. Where there's a lack of flow, there's swelling, there's inflammation, there's stagnation, fluid accumulation, and again with that underlying quality of heat. That's the key to when we would be using elder. We often see that in conditions of, like, rosacea is a perfect example. A lot of skin problems that present with redness and inflammation and kind of puffy mottled tissue. Elder is one of the classic compounds used both topically and also internally for the skin.
So is it pretty cool?
It's very cooling. It's cooling and it's stabilizing. So energetically, it's cooling, structurally tonifying, and it is neutral energetically in the fluids because it does have polysaccharides, and polysaccharides are always going to hold moisture. Polysaccharides carry water. That's just what they do. And so anytime you have that kind of quality of starchiness, that quality of sweetness, that quality of kind of the mouthfeel that tells you there's polysaccharides there, you know that there is a moistening effect. It isn't a huge one. It's not a super slimy plant, but it's not really drying. It is moving fluids in the body, though. And so we could see in a body that has a lot of stagnation, there can be a lot of puffiness, there can be a lot of edema. And in the moving of the fluids and the enhancement of the moving and the clearance of those, the net effect on the body can be a drying effect, right? Not because it is actively drying, but because it's moving. See the distinction there? So in some bodies where there is already a lot of movement and inherent dryness, it can be a bit moistening. But in a lot of bodies with that stagnation, it's going to be drying. So depending on what you're looking for. It also has a lot of this flavonoid chemistry, so it's going to be really, really good at stabilizing tissues. So that combination makes it really valuable for tissue stability, but especially again, where there is that stagnation. It is also a very strong diaphoretic. This is another way that it moves stuff out of the body, and this kind of speaks to that movement of energy. If you drink elderflower tea, hot cup of tea, drink it and then go to bed and bundle up, you will sweat, because that is what diaphoresis is. So diaphoresis is sweating. A diaphoretic plant is a plant that induces sweating. And this can be really helpful when there is, again, that stuckness, that energy that is not being able to, or heat that's not being able to be released to the exterior. Opening up those channels and being able to move heat outward is going to be really, really beneficial when you're working with those patterns of stagnation that can cause stuck heat in the body, and also when we're dealing with things like fevers, right? In a fever, we don't necessarily want to be taking things to cool the fever, because mounting a fever is one of the most valuable things that our immune system can do for us. It is a very important way that our body has of making our body a hostile environment particularly for viruses, because viruses only live in a very narrow range of temperature, and anything outside that temperature is going to make a hostile environment for them. So mounting a fever is one of the greatest things that our body can do. So we don't necessarily want to reduce heat, but we also want to be able to provide comfort for people who are very uncomfortable in a fever. And we also want to take care of children and elders, people who have constitutions that might be harmed by that heat. In a very young child, they're not able to regulate their body temperature. So something like a fever needs to be taken much more seriously than with an older child, or, a 20-year-old or a teenager. So elderflower is one of the plants that we can use for helping to release heat in the body. If there's a fever, it's not cooling the fever in the body, but it is opening the exterior and allowing the body to radiate that heat outward, which is what is supposed to happen. And so having drinking tea until sweat forms on the skin. That is breaking the fever. That shows that heat is being able to radiate outwards, and that's really, really beneficial. That is also really beneficial for people with stagnant, chronic inflammatory skin disorders, particularly like psoriasis, inducing diaphoresis, increasing sweating can be really, really beneficial for people who are dealing with psoriasis specifically. With eczema, it can also be helpful, elderflower, because again, if we look at just the chemistry of the plant and the general actions of the plant, we can see that those actions, that chemistry is would be really supportive to eczema, where we have both a disordered and hyperreactive immune system presenting with this skin response, right? So the skin response is just the body is pissed off about something in the environment. A lot of times that something in the environment is present in our bloodstream. It's metabolic waste products of foods that we ate that maybe our immune system doesn't love, or something else that we were exposed to that is annoying our immune system. And so using alternatives can be very, very helpful for allergic type things, also for hay fever and allergies, which elderflower is also very beneficial for. But with eczema, because we're also looking at something that's very, very beneficial for strengthening the skin, elderflowers are really great as a topical application, both as a short-term compress. When we're dealing with eczema, we don't have long-term application of water because that softens the skin, and that's generally not something that feels good for someone with eczema. But short-term application of a water extract on the skin and then let it dry, and do that repeatedly, not allowing the water to saturate the skin, can be really helpful. Or infusing elderflower into oil and making an elderflower balm or oil can be really, really beneficial, particularly when combined with things like calendula and chamomile. That is a really nice combination, the calendula, chamomile, and elderflower, for heat signs in the skin, for red, hot, inflamed skin, and then skin that is not strong and healthy and elastic. Really exceptional for that. Let's see. Other metabolic waste accumulation conditions for which elderflower is traditionally used are things like gout and arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. And again, here we have an immune system that is hyper responsive and hyper reactive to things in its environment. Or we have accumulation of metabolic waste that is causing inflammation and irritation. So in all of these, getting rid of the metabolic waste is going to be really beneficial for helping to take some of the load off of those the body, but also helping to clear the synovial fluid of those waste products, because the waste products in the synovial fluid are one of the things that just irritates the joints in general when we have things like gout and arthritis. Let's see. So we will look in upcoming classes, we'll look at elderflower in formulation for skin support, for heat and weak tissue skin support, and then also internally for those conditions of stagnation in the body. One of the things that we do want to differentiate between the flowers and the berries. Again, berries are one of the ways that people generally use elder, and it is so commonly applied there. We do want to differentiate between the chemistry of the flower and the berries. And one of the primary things is that flavonoid chemistry. The flavonoid chemistry of elder flowers is primarily rutin and isoquercetin compounds related flavonoids. This is the flower flavonoids. And then the berry the flavonoids change to anthocyanins, which you know because they're purple, right? But the anthocyanins in the berry. So you know that there's none of the anthocyanins in here, right? We have 0 anthocyanins in here because it's not purple. So if it's not purple, we can't have the specific chemistry that is antiviral that is in the berries. So the anthocyanins in berry, there's a specific one because you can't just use all anthocyanins to fight viral infections the way that elderberry specifically does. So it is the specific anthocyanin called sambucin in the berry that is considered to hold the therapeutic effects. The reason why elderberry is so effective against the flu virus is because of this. It's pretty cool how it works. So when you have a virus, the virus has little spikes on the outside of it. We all know what viral spikes look like in the age of COVID. And on the end of those spikes, they have an enzyme. Influenza viruses specifically produce an enzyme called neuraminidase. And neuraminidase is able to go into our cell. So we have a cell, and we have cells. The cells have little entry points really for stuff to come in. And the virus, the influenza virus with its spikes, comes in, and those spikes can penetrate here with the neuraminidase enzyme, and that enzyme activates this port and opens up the port, and the virus can go into the cell. And it's important to remember that viruses have no ability to replicate themselves. They don't have genetic material in themselves, so they need to hijack genetic material of another living organism. So they have to go into the cell, grab our genetic material, and then they can make clones of themselves. They'll make all sorts of clones, and then the cell lyses, it damages, and then all these viruses go out into the body. So that's how viral replication happens. That's how viruses make more of themselves. So if it can't gain entry into the cell, then it can't replicate itself. And so sambucin deactivates neuraminidase. It blocks that enzyme. In the same way that saw palmetto deactivates the 5-alpha reductase enzyme that converts the testosterone we were talking about earlier. This deactivates this. So without that enzyme, virus can't get in. And then because the virus is outside the cell, now all of our immune cells that are out here in this interstitial fluid can identify that virus and go after it and kill it. So our immune system is more able to fight the virus, and the virus is not able to replicate itself. It is a very effective way of fighting a virus. And the cool thing is, one of the things about the influenza virus that is problematic is that it mutates all the time. The flu virus just mutates all the time. And that's why they're always giving new flu vaccines, even though the new flu vaccines often haven't adjusted for the new mutations. The flu virus is just sneaky, and it can just get around that. But it cannot mutate to avoid the effect of sambucin in it. It can't mutate because the only way that the influenza virus can get in the cell is through this enzyme. And there's no way that it's going to mutate to not be able to use that. And as long as that's happening, the berry is going to be one of the best things that we can use, one of the best medicines that we can use for fighting flu viruses. But that being said, that's not the chemistry of the flower. So the flower is not able to do all of this. If you're looking specifically for the flu fighting qualities, you really do need to take the berry. But the other flavonoids are also extremely beneficial. All right, so there we go. Here's some more tea if you want some more tea. Any questions about the elder flower? I was really hoping, I meant to grab some of the flowers from, we have a elderflower tree in my front yard, and I forgot to, and I was hoping I have a little elderflower tree here. Oh, I have a little elderflower here. I have a little elder tree here, but it's not flowering. I did want to show you, I actually grabbed one of the leaves because one of the ways that we identify plants is the botanical structures, but another way that we identify plants beyond genetic testing is smell. And when you are identifying things by just leaf structure alone, I want to show you these two leaves. These are sometimes smaller and these are sometimes bigger, so ignore the size. What I want you to look at here is the leaf structures. They're almost identical. They're both pinnately compound. They have this in this central vein and then paired leaflets coming off the side. So they are pinnately compound and they have a toothed leaf margin. So they are almost completely identical. This is rose and this is elder. So sometimes if you find a plant that's just producing leaves, you can't identify them by the structure of the leaf because they look too much alike. When these are the same size, and often they are, it is really, really hard to tell them apart just by looking at them. But if you crush this elder leaf and smell it, you'll get the smell of elder, and that is very distinctive and a very good way of identifying it because nothing else that has a leaf structure like elder is going to smell like that.
It smells almost like almondy.
Yeah. Yeah, very nutty. Yes, most people think of it as funky smelling peanut butter.
Yeah.
Yeah, like peanut butter that you're not really sure you should be eating. You open up the jar and go,
Nope, too long.
would you smell this?
Too
Get
long.
a second opinion. Yeah, way too long. There's a couple of plants that have that funky peanut butter smell. And other plants are not going to smell like that. I just made elderflower tea so you can follow along. Yay, Sandra. Good. You can go back to the beginning and watch our whole thing. And then we will be doing elderflower for the next 2 weeks. We will be playing more with elderflower. Yeah. There are people who do advocate for use of the leaf and the bark internally, especially with COVID. There was a lot of people who are going to internal use of the leaf. I think that is short-sighted and dangerous and unwise. And so the leaf is known to be toxic and purgative. And so we really don't want to use that. Topically, though, we use the leaf, and we will talk about that when we are looking at topical application. So no other questions? Any questions from folks online about elderflower?
I
Yes.
found it to be kind of stimulating.
Mm-hmm.
I was putting it in my tea at night and I had to stop
Yeah,
because it
yeah.
was too much.
The leaf?
The flower.
The flower.
Yeah.
So consider that quality of movement of fluids. It is increasing movement, and I wonder if maybe that felt.
Yeah, maybe it felt like I would wake up feeling like I was busy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd been working all night.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It was
and you
interesting.
were.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, because I was like, I'm like this in my tea
Yeah.
all night.
Yeah, that's really valuable information for you. Yeah. Do you tend to be more dry constitution?
Yeah.
You look like you would be.
Yeah.
I wonder if it would be modified if you added more of a moistening herb in there. If you threw a little bit of like marshmallow in there to give it a little bit of moisture. Sometimes moving fluids in a body that doesn't have a lot of fluids can feel a little bit more like friction.
I definitely do chamomile every night, and then
Okay.
sometimes I add stuff in. So I was adding that
Yeah.
in with the chamomile, and I was like, oh my
And it
God.
seems like it would be a lovely
Yes, I thought it would
combination
be such a
on
nice
paper.
combination.
Yeah, yeah. Very
But it was
interesting.
It was too much. I felt like it was too
Mhm. Yeah,
busy.
cool. Good information for that. So the root and the leaves have the highest form of cyanide. Curious how they would be able to get the cyanide out for it to be ingested. Exactly. Yeah. People who were using that Trinity, I think they were just being hyper-focused on part of the chemistry and not remembering all of the chemistry. And, you know, there are reasons why we have traditions for not using parts of the plants. There are reasons people have been, you know, using elder. This is an ancient plant and circumglobally. And every culture that uses it says, don't be using the leaf and the bark. And if they do, almost always it's used as a purgative. It's used as a very strong laxative. It's going to make you poop and it's going to make you vomit. And sometimes, especially with the traditions of herbalism, the heroic traditions, where it's like, oh yeah, pooping and vomiting, that's like, it's definitely working. Look how well it's working. Yes, there's definitely that mindset in herbalism. There still is that mindset in herbalism to this day. I have people who are always coming in, oh, you want an example of that right now? What is it called? Duck flower. Duck flower. Look up duck flower. Stupid. It's an Aristolochiae flower. It's really popular right now as a detox herb. And when you read it's an Aristolochiae. As soon as I saw it, it's like, oh no, we don't use those plants. Aristolochic acid is very poisonous or very toxic. We don't use it, but it's all over the internet and people are coming in for it because they want to have a purgative, because they want something that's going to make them poop and vomit, because it's this heroic mindset says that's like doing something. It's really cleansing. It's like, no, it's poisoning you.
What is people's obsession with
Pooping and vomiting?
like
The pooping things. Oh, you know what people's obsession with pooping is.
Obsessed with
Like laxatives?
Yes.
Or, yeah.
Purging.
Yeah.
You know what's weird about that though?
Huh.
Is that flower, which I'd actually never heard of before, is in the new Mufasa movie that I watched with the kids. Yeah, they talk about it in the movie.
Oh no.
And I wonder if that's also sparked like an interest
Oh, that's interesting.
in that flower.
Ooh. In the new Mufasa?
Yeah, the new Lion King movie that came out. I mean,
Oh no, I have to go watch it now.
No, if you got kids, then-
Right, yeah. My kids are too old. They're not going to be interested in it now. But oh
Yeah,
wow.
They talk about that, and I wonder if that also sparked. Like,
I wonder. Yeah.
Not that like the Lions.
That's,
don't need anything, but
Yeah.
It's very. That's very.
Yeah, that is very. Anyway, so yes. So sometimes it is absolutely. It's just people get just drama. We love drama. Our nervous systems, we like, drama is just, our bodies hate drama. Our bodies like care and comfort and nourishment and calm, but our weird little nervous systems, our weird little brains love drama. And so there's that constant like fight between that. It's like, pooping and vomiting, or just nourish your body, just nourish it, and just, how about a soup? No, poop, soup is better than poop. Not to minimize the importance of poop. Pooping is very good for us. Okay. Anyway, there you go. So we will be looking at none of those other things. And next week, we'll just be looking at elderflower and formulation with elderflower coming up. So join us next week, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye. Also, hey, look, you're able to read. I'm using my computer and not the phone. How was the sound today, folks online? I didn't hear anyone complaining, and we had no hiccups. So I'm hoping that maybe this is excellent. It was good. Oh, good. Hi. Good. Okay. Good. I'm glad. We'll see how this works. With me and technology, it will work for a little while, and then it'll go south, and then we'll just try something else. We'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.
What do you use? I've seen people make flower essence.
Yeah.